With Halo 3 ODST coming to PC, as well as Firefight getting reintroduced, I figure that a lot of new players who have never touched Halo 3 Firefight before will be wondering one question. What are the best weapons to use? In this video, I will be going over my tier list of weapons to use in Firefight, but before we jump into it, I have to cover some points on how I will be ranking these weapons. While difficulty can really make or break a weapon, I'll mostly be using heroic difficulty as a reference, as that'll be the normal firefight mode. You can skip to this timestamp if you just wanna, skip the introduction. Anyway, let's get into it. Ammo is extremely important in Firefight because you do have a limited amount to work with, unlike the unlimited supply locker in Reach. This can be a breaker on whether or not you decide to pick up a weapon or just leave it. This happens all the time, like, when you're getting a new plasma pistol, for example. Versatility deals with weapons that can be used with multiple types of enemies and situations, even if it's not really what it was made to do. An example of this is, again, the plasma pistol being great for shields, but you can also use it to take out tanks and other vehicles as well. Power and damage are pretty self-explanatory. Weapons damage will always influence your opinion to use it. An example of this is the rocket launcher or the Spartan laser. Both of them being able to do potential one-shot damage to pretty much any other enemy in the game. The last part is spawn, or placement of the weapon. It's pretty self-explanatory too. If a weapon has an extremely low spawn rate from enemies, it may not be the best decision to pick it up, as there may be little chance of getting more ammo for it. And guns like the pistol or SMG are always in a fixed position, so you know where they are at all times. The worst weapon, in my opinion, is the shotgun. The weapon fails to do or show anything significant that would make it worth trading literally any other weapon in the game. It takes about 3 shots to kill an armored brute with full shields. However, if you combo this weapon with a plasma pistol, it'll still take like 2 shots to kill an enemy. It's worthless against jackals, as their shields will usually block most of your shots. And while it's okay against the grunts and the bugs, there are significantly better options. The Mauler has the same problem as the shotgun, only this time you can actually get more ammo for it. The Brute Shot is kind of disappointing. While it does more melee damage than regular punches, and you can one-shot jackals and grunts, you don't see this weapon very often, and by that logic, only has 12 shots in reserve. This weapon is also not very good against shields or armored units. With the shots being projectile, you're going to want to be close if you want to hit your targets, which, if you have the catch skull on, you're not want to be close to any of the enemies. The Spiker is what I'd call, my teammates took all the reserve ammo for the better weapons and I'm stuck with using this. This is a very common weapon to see with brutes, so you usually have lots of ammo for it, and it can dish out some okay damage against most enemies, shielded or not. The reason it's so low then is because it's projectile, and with that means it sucks at dealing with bugs, jackals, and enemies at medium ranges. The Needler falls into the same category as the Spiker in that you'll use this weapon only if you're completely out of ammo. That said, the Needler was nerfed in ODST in that it takes more needles to cause a super combine. With that said, it is still very effective against brutes, because obviously causing a super combine makes them, instantly die. With the amount of needles it takes to get a super combine though, on any sort of enemy though, it's better to use this against heavier or slower targets, and not so much against grunts or jackals. The Gravity Hammer in Firefight is what I'd call a niche. It's very effective in close quarters and kills in 1 to 2 swings max for most enemies. Playing with this weapon defensively and around corners will give you the maximum results. It is also very helpful for using sometimes when you're stuck with the black eye skull. This weapon falls flat though, for a couple reasons. The first one is that it only spawns at the last wave of a set. The second problem is that once you get the hammer, you have to deal with the catch skull, which makes close quarters engagements much more challenging to deal with. It's a good pick, honestly, but with certain maps though, better than others. The sniper rifle in ODST is pretty good, being able to two-shot brutes if you can hit the head, and one-shot enemies that don't have a shield. The main draw of this weapon is that you unscope when you get shot. Considering lots of enemies like to rush the player, you'll have to get used to snapshotting a lot if you want to do your firefights solo. In lobbies, just have your allies take most of the incoming fire so you don't have to worry about unscoping or missing or dealing with grenades getting thrown at you. Same deal with the sniper. I personally find the beam rifle to be much easier to hit shots with, but you can rank these weapons differently if you wanted to. The missile pod is only available in one map, and with that one map, it does do a pretty good job. If you keep it stationed, you can deal with the phantom blaster and the grunts in the plasma turret very easily, meaning you don't have to hide behind cover when a phantom drops in. When detached though, the weapon only has 8 shots, and I would compare them just the stronger brute shot. Keep it attached and use it against the gunners in the turret, and you will love this thing. I didn't know until making this video, but you can actually get the plasma turret if you get a grenade or rocket at the grunt in the phantom. That said, I never see people going out of their way to get the plasma turret. It's usually by accident that it drops or in firefight rocket matches. The weapon is great against hordes of brutes and can be pretty good against normal infantry. It does rank low though for being projectile, and usually you have to use a more powerful weapon to get it. Grenades in general are very good. While some are better than others, I would rank the UNSC grenade as kind of lackluster. With tough luck being on all the time, most enemies will see the grenade when it lands and dodge it really easily. That said, you got quite a bit to work with, and spamming these things before a phantom drop or in a group of enemies can get you some pretty easy kills. The rocket launcher is really good if you can use it correctly. Sure, you could shoot this thing into a group of enemies and get some easy kills with it, but with this thing having very low ammo, you better save it for much harder enemies like hunters. 2 shots with this thing will usually down a hunter, and since you have 2 extra rockets in your reserve, you can theoretically kill 2 hunters with 2 rockets. It just takes some practice. So any grenade that sticks to an enemy is usually a great grenade, as it will usually one-shot whatever you throw or stick to. The spiker grenade sometimes kills brutes in one shot, but at the very least it will take out their shield, leaving you with an easier brute to kill. The Spartan laser is like a way better version of the rocket launcher, being able to one-shot enemies like hunters and raids. It falls into the same thing as the rocket launcher though. If you learn how to use it when it needs to be used, it can bring some heavy relief to the team, especially if your team has trouble dealing with things like wraiths or hunters. It only has 5 shots though, so make them count. The fuel rod is weird. It is very good to have all around and only has problems dealing with the bugs. So why isn't it S tier? It's because of the randomness of the fuel rod spawning. While you're almost guaranteed a fuel rod cannon at the end of a wave, you'll most likely run out of ammo with this. If you do get lucky and you get a lot of them to spawn, well, the enemy doesn't stand a chance. The heavy turret is quite consistent, being able to bring down shielded enemies and weaker enemies quite easily, and since it's hit scan, it becomes much better to fight bugs with. The only problem is that since it's stationary, you do have that chance of getting blown up, especially when the catch skull is on, and detaching it gives you only 200 shots and a slower mobility. It's best to use this weapon as a clearing the weaker enemies weapon to, give you some breathing room with that catch skull on. You may be wondering why I put the SMG so high in the tier list. The SMG does crap damage against shields, but the SMG works extremely well against bugs and weaker enemies. With the scope and lots of ammo, if you keep the SMG on hand, the bug rounds and weaker enemies will not be a problem for you. And really, since you have a good chunk of ammo for it, using it on shielded targets is better than using nothing at all, right? The plasma rifle is a great alternative to the plasma pistol. While you can't overcharge it to deal with tanks and engineers, you can still do what its intended purpose is, and that's to deal with shields. It's okay against weaker enemies, so spamming this weapon in a crowd of enemies is effective. It doesn't drop as rare as the plasma pistol, but if you see one, picking one up is always a great choice. The fire nades are really good. Hitting someone directly will always grant you a kill, and potentially more if they're in a group. You can also use this weapon as a way to lock down an area if you need some breathing space. The only bad thing about this weapon is that it's quite rare to find, only spawning when the invisible brutes show up, and it can kill friendlies quite easily, so take care out there. The plasma grenade has two things that make it S tier. The first being that stuck brutes will be one-shot by it, and that grunts drop plenty of it. It can take some practice to get used to, and enemies can dodge it, but when you have so much at your disposal, that doesn't really become a problem. The plasma pistol is a very great secondary weapon, being able to completely delete shields from brutes, being able to one-shot engineers, and in a pinch, you can even use it to take on raids. Honestly, the noob combo is great on whatever Halo game you play, but in this game, it's exceptionally good. My favorite weapon of all time, the pistol is able to one-shot headshot all unarmored enemies. Comboing it with the plasma pistol makes most enemies not able to stand a chance against it, and having ammo spawns every wave makes the ammo part almost not worrisome. The only drawback with the pistol is that body shots do little to no damage, and using this on bug rounds can be quite hard to hit the headshots on, especially the bugs with the shields. The carbine is a beefed up version of the pistol. While it does still have the one-shot headshot potential, now it has the ability to do good body shot damage and take out shields if it needs to. The only downside of the carbine is that finding ammo for it can be really bad sometimes. That's all the obtainable weapons in Firefight. Well, normally that is. MCC lets you spawn in with certain weapons that you normally wouldn't be able to obtain in regular Firefight. And like I said, while you can obtain these weapons in matchmaking, I'll rank them really quickly. The assault rifle is basically an SMG without the ammo, and without the ammo, you're gonna run out of it pretty quick. Any weapon being able to one-shot, headshot is always gonna be a top tier weapon. This would be an S tier weapon for sure if it had more ammo. You cannot get the flamethrower at all. It's a close range weapon that slows you down. Enough said. And with that, that's all the weapons ranked for ODST Firefight. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great day.